Now folks, let's get into the most important stimulus check information first. But personally, I want to see our politicians, the Democrats and the Republicans, send out more stimulus checks. I believe that President Biden, Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, and even Bernie Sanders should all come to the table and send out more stimulus payments to the American people. And if you guys agree, then be sure to subscribe to my channel.
George, from day one, the President of the United States, the Speaker of the House, Majority Leader Schumer, have made it clear we're going down a two-track approach.
What are your thoughts on the current relief programs, everybody? Do you think that more stimulus relief should be provided to the American people? Tell me in the comments below. Now here's what Bernie Sanders is saying about the stimulus payments, folks.
Of our country, working families, the children, the elderly, the poor are even more important. And we can and must do both. Look, everybody in America, whether you're Republican, Democrat, or Independent, understands that for the last many years,
Bernie Sanders said, there is a real danger congressional Democrats could fail to deliver on two major pieces of legislation. Furthering President Biden's domestic agenda, if moderates like Joe Manchin cannot agree on the price tag. Sanders has repeatedly said he would support progressive House Democrats, who have vowed to block the $1.2 trillion bipartisan infrastructure bill.
Over the world, the United States must lead the world in transforming our energy system away from fossil fuel. This is a crisis. So what polling tells us is working families all over this country understand that now is the time for Congress to address the long neglected problems facing working families. Now is the time to have the wealthy and large corporations
that passed in the Senate last month. Now, if the $3.5 trillion budget reconciliation package that passed the House stalls in the Senate, Sanders wrote that this will be a disaster for the American people. There is a real danger that this bill will lose, that the infrastructure bill will lose in the House. What do you think about Bernie Sanders, everybody? Is he doing all that it takes to send out more stimulus relief? In addition, folks, the Democrats have now proposed a $3.5 trillion reconciliation bill, which could overhaul your retirement savings. Everybody, just know this first.
Welcome back to another Social Security benefits update. In this video, we're going to take a look at Bernie Sanders' thoughts on Social Security benefits, including his plan to increase monthly benefit checks and his thoughts on what he's calling the current retirement crisis. So let's take a look and see what Bernie had to say, and let me know your thoughts in the comments below.
The issue that I'd like to touch upon today is Social Security. Perhaps the most important federal program in existence, a program of enormous consequence to the 59 million seniors, people with disabilities, and children who are beneficiaries.
A few weeks ago, the IRS faced a historic backlog of individual tax returns, and now that backlog is 8.5 million. The IRS says delays could be 120 days before Americans receive returns or payments for the 2020 taxes. For reference, the IRS says their refunds normally take around 21 days to process. The IRS has an online tool to check your refund status there. But millions of people are still left in the dark about when this all might be resolved. And it's partly to do with staffing, and also due to the growing workload from the IRS. As I reported everybody 2 months ago, the IRS has been handling stimulus checks being processed and sent out to the people, as well as the child tax credit payments, which are going out on the 15th of every month. So far, the IRS, which was already short-staffed before the crisis, has new issues that they must deal with. There are a few reasons for this. The National Taxpayer Advocate says it comes down to a perfect storm of issues. If your tax return is deemed incomplete or is complete with errors, there's a strong likelihood that you'll receive a letter in the mail before receiving an actual refund. Another reason will be that the IRS flagged the refund as suspicious due to identity fraud or fraud concerns. The IRS says their earned income tax credit filers, as well as child tax credit recipients, are noting some delays in getting 2020 returns paid out. Everybody, the federal programs that provided income support to our unemployed Americans has now been expired. It's been calculated that around 7.5 million people saw all of the unemployment benefits that they were receiving be completely ended. Even as the economy recovers, not all will be able to re-enter the workforce immediately, either due to a mismatch of skills for the jobs available or the lingering complications caused by the crisis. It has been shown that that the unemployment benefits were not the main reason holding people back from finding a job, causing labor shortages. Prior to the federal income support programs for those out of work coming to an end, the Biden administration called on states to use relief funds, authorized by Congress to extend unemployment benefits. But no Labor Department has announced that additional benefits are on the way. In the state of New York, for workers who found themselves without employment beyond the amount of time they were allowed under the state's regular unemployment insurance system, they had access to a pair of programs. These long-term unemployed could receive emergency unemployed compensation, which provided an additional 13 weeks of income support. Around 3.8 million workers were collecting jobs aid from this program in mid-August. The other program, Extended Benefits, is a federal state aid program that provides additional weeks depending on the unemployment rate in the state. While these benefits have ceased in most states, either because the unemployment rate is now below the threshold or the state can no longer cover the cost with the federal funds, which expired, a few states will still continue payments.
Now, on another matter, the international stage isn't the only area where the Biden administration policies have caused damage that was both foreseeable and foreseen. Back in the springtime, Washington Democrats dumped trillions of dollars in liberal borrowing and spending onto the American people. What it was a recipe for rampant inflation, a silent tax hike on American families. It was clear what would happen. Even liberal economists warned that this was a bad idea that would cause inflation. But just like in Afghanistan, Democrats had made up their minds long ago and were certainly not going to be deterred. Now, working Americans are paying the price. Annual inflation is up 5.4%, tied for the worst inflation in over a decade. It's more than swamped American workers' wage gains over the last year. The Democrats' inflation is turning Americans' workers' pay raises into effective pay cuts, essentially pickpocketing American families. You might think this would give our Democratic friends some pause and encourage them to deal in reality. But alas, that's not what's happening. Instead, they're eager to jam through yet another massive multi-trillion-dollar reckless taxing and spending spree, an effort to move our country to the left, literally forever. Massive new government intrusion into America's child care arrangements, into America's medical prescriptions,